direction. Laurentinio's in front. The post is looming. So's the Fugazi who died but misses. Laurentinio's got there.
Descending on the outside, Bid in a Hurry hit the lead. Kingscote after Bid in a Hurry. Bid in a Hurry in front and won.
Flying scraping paint. Too Big Fari moved up. Put the head in front late. Too Big Fari ran down. Great news.
Meters to go. 2 lengths in front of Kilcarny Royale. Then a wall of horses, but it's all banter. Won it well from Kilcarny Royale.
G'day punters, welcome to the Sydney Review Show. It was a stinking hot day at Rosehill. The racing was pretty good. In terms of the betting, there's a fair amount to touch on and a few performances I'm sure that we can find going forward. No Rob Scurry this morning. He's otherwise occupied, but we've got Mark Shean and Mark Rhoden to join us to review the meeting. Mark Shean, it would have been pretty stifling, I imagine, there. Just describe to someone from the west what 42 degrees at Rosehill feels like.
Yeah, well, it wasn't too bad. It was still 42 degrees. I think yesterday was worse with the northwesterly with that wind. There wasn't as much wind on Saturday. And in fact, a lot of horses didn't seem to sweat up all that much, surprisingly. I think there was, a lower humidity than some of those hot days we get, and the horses seemed to handle it okay. So we didn't see many horses go to pieces, actually, throughout the program, which was good. I think track-wise, it was fairly hard to make ground. I think you had to be up in the leading division. I don't think sitting 3 wide was much chop throughout the day.
Yeah, that's what it certainly looked like. Mark Rhoden, in terms of the track overall, when you analyse a meeting like Saturday's, do you obviously bias those horses that were sitting on speed? But in terms of the overall ratings, they seem to be producing some pretty decent figures overall.
Yeah, there's a couple that almost look too good to be true. The 1100 metre races, the Starlight and the race that 3O'd won, either the stalls are in the wrong spot or they're a lot better than I thought they were, the winners of those races. So I'm just trying to get my head around that, actually. Compared to the races at other distances, they just look a bit too quick to me.
Yep. I
generally distinguish the shoot races from the outer circle races at Rosehill anyway, but there's even a difference between the 1100 and 1200 looks maybe iffy. We'll see. But yeah, it was just a standard, like a real old-fashioned Rosehill up and off. Fence-in run wasn't a disaster, but I'd say up on the speed and running line was A1.
All right, beauty. We're going to review races 1 and then races 5 through 9, but we'll start with the 2-year-olds over the 1100. Robodira, if that's how we're pronouncing it, won on debut for O'Shea and Avdallah, defeating Sliders and Hunnan. Mark Shean, I'll start with you. Did you get any impression of any of these 2-year-olds? Have gone slow for the class, 2.2 lengths slow to the 600?
Yeah, pretty slow time, 64.9 I think I got them. So, yeah, look, I think these will only turn out to be midweek as really good money again for Hunham, who blinkers on, but he was very towy in the yard and over-raced all the way and checking off heels. So maybe he's a bit of a head case at the moment and might need the ultimate operation. The winner had a beautiful run on the fence all the way and just stuck to its guns there. Trialled okay without doing anything flash, but just did get a charm run here. Sliders was game. She's dead set knee-high to a grasshopper, so she'd have to do a lot of growing. I think, she's probably going to get away with a couple of races, but they'll catch up with her next season. She's very tiny. Can't see much else out of the race, really. El Palmy made a bit of ground from the back and sweated up a little bit, so it might improve with the run, but I don't think there's any superstars here.
All right, very good intel there. Mark Rhoden, 2-year-old race, couple of first starters, no interest overall for yourself, but when you had a look at the race afterwards, was there anything that appealed?
No, not really. I have to agree with Mark. The time suggests they're not much goods. Interesting, those comments about Sliders. I actually had a rating. I mean, she won at Newcastle over 900 and hasn't been able to hold that same figure out to 1100. Suggests she might be, short course only as well. No, I don't have a huge amount to say about this lot. We've seen some high-rating 2-year-olds so far this season, and these aren't amongst them.
Okay, very good. Look, we'll jump forward to race 5. We'll just touch on race 4 just for a moment, just to point out that promotions, Mark Shean, you took that horse on with the preview show, and again, it loomed to win and then stopped. So very good there. I'm sure it would have been trading very short there on the fair.
Yeah, well, I was pretty lucky there. He did rear at the start and didn't take up a position where he probably normally would. So, and he had to make too long a run. So, in his defence, I thought he went fairly good considering the start.
You're going to back him next start now?
Definitely not. I'm a bit of a pot for the horse, as you know, and I'm glad that he did rear at the start on Saturday.
All right, race 5 was over the 1100 as well. The benchmark 78. And as you pointed out, Mark Rhoden, look, they have gone pretty quick here for the class and the punting form data, 5.5 lengths fast to the 600, but 3 Ood's basically sat off the course the entire way and recorded a very strong figure overall and seemingly won pretty easy there in the end, defeating Rare Episode and Monte Ditto. We didn't discuss race 5 on the previous show. Mark Rhoden, did you have any thoughts on this race going into it?
I liked Plaquette, and I thought it would set up okay for her, but I think that, well, you know, you can say the pattern was against her on the day, but she's run 8th, and the winner was back with her and ran straight past her early in the straight too. So Plaquette, even though possibly unsuited, has underperformed badly. So I backed her, and I saved on Rare Episode, who's put in a mighty run. They've gone really fast here, and it's been right up on the speed all the way and only run down in the last 25 metres or so, but can't take anything away from the winner. It's been a super performance. Just would have been nice if Rare Episode could have held on. Probably a decent form race, I think. Monte Ditto's run 3rd. He's super honest. They seem to run him at Canterbury a lot for some reason, which is totally not his track, I think. But, you know, what are they, 78s? I think a pretty reasonable 78, we could call this.
Yep. I tend to agree with that in terms of just on the raw data by itself. Mark Shean, Plaquette and Lady Banff, the 2 horses in the market have really failed to flatter here, and all 3 of the place getters, in fact the first 4 across the line, were at big odds. Are you taking much out of this event?
Look, 3 Ood had trialled very well at Warwick Farm going into this. She did map poorly with me. I threw a peanut on her when she got out to around $16. I was on Plaquette, and here's another case of a favourite rearing in the barrier, being taken out and vetted and virtually not passing a runner. It seems to be the usual occurrence. If they're vetted, they don't perform, do they? It's I'd love a figure on it because they hardly ever seem to win. Maybe they just get stirred up, these mares, and just don't want to race on the day. As I said, the winner had trialled particularly well, but I think everyone would have mapped her in a bad spot. Certainly the winner of the day, though, she sat wide. All the other 1,100-metre races, or the 2 others, were 3rd on the fence, the winners there. So she's done an outstanding performance and run a good sectional as well. She looks to have come back in great order. Rare Episode was gallant in defeat. He's probably better at 1,000, but around the Rosehill at 1,100 metres, he was able to box on quite well. So, but I think 3 Ood's certainly the one to follow.
Mark Rhoden, it's an interesting point there because 3 Ood first up for 122 days. On the punting form data, it's recorded a peak performance first up, and we spoke about this previously. Are you going to have any hesitation with that horse next start?
A little. I mean, it's certain. This is not to take anything away from her run on Saturday, but yeah, it's a new peak for her, and to do it in the fashion she did too, sitting off the track and chasing a hot speed down. You just whether there's some physical toll's been taken by that effort, and especially second up. It's just a bit of a rule of thumb of mine. Dependent on price. I mean, if everyone's just labelled as she's come back, 3 lengths better or whatever, and she goes around at 250 or something next start, then that's definitely the case. I'll be opposing it. But if you're getting a price, you can take the punt.
All right, so we'll wait and see there on 3 Ood. Race 6, the ATC Cup, was a listed race over 2,000 metres. Graceful Glamour did what Graceful Glamour tends to do on these type of tracks, find the front, dictate. It was the 2nd or 3rd race, I think, in a row that Rachel King saluted on. So obviously she was riding particularly well, but she's just rated this mare perfectly out in front, 1.1 lengths slow to the 600, and the rest really stood no chance at all. Lorraine Yin and Mantastic 2nd and 3rd. Mark Shean, Graceful Glamour, back towards something like her best, or at least she was suited on the day.
Yeah, well, this was a lovely ride in front. She just got the pace to suit herself, and then she quickened up coming to the 650, I think, there, and just got a break coming around the turn, was never really going to be beaten. And I think the track from that point on certainly very hot up on the speed. This mare confused me with a couple of poor runs in Melbourne where she had raced well in the past, and her Sydney form was okay, but I was on Lormy In, who came out of the stalls like a camel and got too far back. So, but a very good win by Graceful Glamour. Lormy In, very honest, and Mantastic might be looking for a little bit further, but yeah, some indifferent runs from a couple of others back in the field. I thought Roach Clock looked a little bit light. She had been to Melbourne and come back, so I'd just like to have a look at her in the yard again. She just might have, that trip to Melbourne, I should say, might have knocked her about.
Okay, another good point there. Out of the mounting yard there from Saturday, Mark Rhoden, Graceful Glamour, suited on the day. You taking anything much else out of this race?
Not a great deal. They're the sort of usual suspect stayers. They'll turn up in the listed races coming up over the next month, Summer Cup, etc. I imagine. Kicking myself a bit about Graceful Glamour. Her last run in Sydney, I was on her, and the angst, I think it was, over a mile, and she did everything but win with Nash on at double figure odds. So the key to her for me is that she's an out-and-out dry tracker. I know she'd run poorly on a dry track at Flemington, but you didn't have to think too creatively to find her, really, in retrospect. Just forgive her the Melbourne runs. She got her conditions, and she got out to really backable odds. So I stayed out of the race, but after the race I thought, yeah, that's probably a missed opportunity. But no, just let these turn up where they turn up, for sure.
Yep. Okay. Race 7 was the Festival Stakes over 1,500, the Group 3. Outrageous, another horse that sat on speed outside the leader. It's managed to sit there on a slow tempo on the punting form data, 3.1 lengths slow to the 600, and it was basically too strong over Royal Celebration, which again probably outperformed its SP significantly, given that it had drawn off the map as well. Mark Shean, I'll start with you. What are you taking out of the Festival Stakes there on Saturday?
Well, I just think the tempo suited Outrageous here. He's a horse who in the past has been a little bit camera shy there, or winning post shy. He seems to loom up a lot and not go on with it, but seems to have turned that around this preparation. A good win at Flemington, and then toughed it out there, even though Royal Celebration did look a bit stiff, having to sit 3 wide without cover. But he might go onto the Villiers now. Outrageous, I'm not sure. 1,600 metres at Randwick. He'd probably have to get a similar run and a pretty soft time outside the lead to get 16, I would think. I thought Through the Cracks was pretty good here with Sambro. I just think the pattern of the race certainly didn't suit either of those. And I think going to Randwick over 1,600 metres, if they head to the Villiers, I think both of those are certainly horses to follow, because I don't think the way the race was run, it suited those at all.
Through the Cracks ran the fastest 200 of the meeting on punting forms times. Mark Rhoden, race 7, the Festival Stakes, for yourself in review.
Yeah, I didn't bet too heavily in the race back. Faistos and Galway, 2 of the Godolphin runners who seemed to have their chances, I thought, more or less. Interesting thing out of this race for me was the betting. I got Outrageous wrong. It's a horse that I thought might have been off a first up peak down in Melbourne, but he's just been so well suited. He's repeated that performance, no problem. But I was just glancing at Betfair about 2 or so minutes before the race, and he was approaching $7. He was, mid sixes for plenty, and then it's SP'd, I think, 460 or something. He's an absolute truckload has gone on just in that last 90 seconds. And
there was an avalanche of money there late, wasn't there?
Absolutely truckloaded it was, yeah. And they've got it spot on and lobbed in exactly the right spot, the perfect run, and got the money. So they sorted this one out well. Yep, for sure.
Do you think that's more map than anything?
I'd say in this case they've probably got a handle on the pattern, and we're happy to back their judgment.
Yeah, but certainly, as you point out, 4.6 SP, and that was shorter than some of the corporates. So,
yep.
One of those interesting Betfair moves late. Race 8 was the Starlight, and as you mentioned before, Mark Rhoden, another race that's produced a pretty big figure, given that they've only really just gone even in terms of the tempo. 0.5 of the length fast to the 600, and the overall figure recorded by Invictus Salute on the punting form data is quite significant. This about to nonetheless, Invictus Salute managed to hold off Space Boy, who was in the right spot, obviously. Viridine loomed into the race, obviously, from back in the field and was also supported. And that was a horse that you found, Mark Rhoden, early in the piece.
Yeah. He just had a little bit too much to do. They have run great time here, and in the second half of the race, as you mentioned. Rhoden's run really well, but I'm not putting it all down to the tempo, how first and second have gone. They've raced really well, but Rhoden needed them to stop basically, and they just did. I got this race completely and utterly wrong. I think I said first and second had none in the preview on Thursday, and bit of a. I've worked out why I got it wrong. Bit of a trap for young players or old players in my case. You need to have a bet with any sort of seriousness, and I have fallen victim to anchor bias here. I just labelled that Melbourne Cup Day sprint race. I thought the time and sections were very ordinary, certainly not up to listed class. And so when I've seen the fields and started doing the form, I said, right, they're out of that race, they're priced out. I'm going to work with the others, which is just the wrong way to approach any race. And the fact of the matter is both Invictus Salute and Space Boy had much better figures further back in their form that were going to be competitive in this. And no horse is just the product of its last start. You've got to think a bit more creatively than that. And I've fallen victim to that there. I haven't been far wrong. I identified the right one of the rest of them in Rhoden, and it's gone super. But just run into these two who got the right run to enable them to produce their best. So I paid the penalty here, but at least I've hopefully learned something from it.
Okay, there it is. Never-ending learning process. Mark Shean, the Starlight. Look, Varda ended up managing to get itself into a pretty decent spot in run. After being supported early in the day, it tended to just drift back out later and later as we got closer to jump time.
Look, I got this race completely wrong too, and with about 8 others on the day, so too bad there, Mark. Look, Avada just might have been a wet tracker that I thought on Thursday, but I still talked myself into it, thinking that it would get a good run in transit, but it was gone at the 500. So, and that trip back from Melbourne too might have played havoc with it. I thought Invictus Salute might have been a little bit of a wet tracker, but did have some good form at Rosehill over the 1,100 metres in particular. I did back a one day there. It was a certainty beat where it flew home, but no, she just got a beautiful run behind them, but she's going to stud now. She's already in foal, so I think that's her last start, so we won't see her again. Space Boy was on us. Rhoden certainly had the worst run in the race and was the best run.
Yeah. All right. We'll go straight to the last race 9, benchmark 78. Too Big Fari just, again, put itself right into the perfect spot on the day. They've gone even in terms of speed, 0.4 lengths slow on the punting form data to the 600. And look, it's just lobbed in a perfect spot and managed to overcome the other horse that was on speed in great news. Mark Shean, anything to take out of the beaten brigade there in the last race?
I haven't seen much of great news in the yard, but I just thought she was probably at the end of a tether looking at us. She was a little bit on the light side and probably just didn't quite run out the trip. Too Big Fari paraded really well. I thought Filmina was probably the run of the day. Very negative out of the stalls there. Right back was almost in a different postcode at one stage. So how it's come down the outside and run third was outstanding. New arrangement. Just got into a bad spot in the first 200 metres of the race. Super pushed off the fence and was left 3 wide on a limb. So I thought his run was quite good. I had a little bit on the turf. I would have beat it myself on foot. So, yeah, I think Fulmina certainly the one to follow.
All right, very good. Mark Rhoden, you got something out of this with Too Big Fari?
Yep, I did. Perhaps I'd learned something from the race before. Speaking of anchor bias, Michaela Weir is usually a jockey. I do everything in my power to avoid backing in Saturday company, but this horse mapped particularly well. And she did a treat, actually, just stuck it outside the leader. Nash was looking to get off the fence on Betcha Flying, who was most unlucky again. I think that's just the nature of the game for that horse, it appears. But she certainly wasn't bullied by him. I mean, Too Big Fari is a great big strong horse anyway, which helped matters. But no, she held her line and got past the favourite, and God bless her for it. Fulmina clearly the run of the race. She's come back flying, obviously. And yeah, Betcha Flying, as mentioned, just absolutely no luck. But I reckon that was the day. She was really well backed. Nash rode it so much intent out of the gates to get into the box seat from barrier 5. Saturday was clearly the day for her, and I think they might have missed the boat for the prep now.
Yeah, you mentioned Fulmina's obviously flying. Mark Newnham for the current season, 184 starts, 37 wins, running at 20.1% win strike rate, 51.6% play strike rate. So he's going very strong.
Great combination with Tom Sherry too, his apprentice.
Yep. Indeed, there's one for Rob Scurry there, who Rob Scurry will be on course on Friday at Kensington as well as Saturday, which is back at Rosehill, I think, from memory.
Yeah, just a plain old Saturday next week.
All right. Well, that makes things easy. We'll still talk about it on Thursday. But before that, a couple of horses to follow from yourselves. We've thrown out quite a few. But was there one or two highlights for yourself, Mark Shean?
Oh, well, I thought Fulmina and 3 Ood were probably the two best of the day. But again, with the disclaimer with 3 Ood, of course, the tough run first up, as Mark said, with a peak. So we just got to see how she parades going into that second run. But most of her form is better on wet tracks. Not that we're going to get any rain in the near future, but that's something to look out for. But I thought Fulmina was fantastic there, and I thought Through the Cracks, if they go to the Villiers, would certainly be an ideal race for him.
Indeed. Mark Rhoden, a couple to follow for yourself?
Thought, yeah, Fulmina was the obvious eye catcher of the day. I think passage of time out of the Starlight's come back really well. He went better than I thought he might, but he's going to be hard to place at his sort of age with his handicap rating. I don't know where they go with him, whether they can get a win out of him, but I think he's going well. And I didn't mind the run of Starla in behind Who's a Hot Shot either, but I think she's more midweek than Saturday.
Well, we have to mention there that there's an inquiry into the ride on passage of time with the vigours shown by Brenton Abdallah up the straight there. So a little bit boxed up for running the early part of the straight, and when he hooked out, only gave it one hit with the whip and then seemed to... look, I don't think it was going to finish a great deal closer personally, but it might have finished a half a length closer, but stewards, and rightly so, are asking questions about that.
Yeah, they're entitled to ask the question. I agree. I don't think it would have... You know, we sort of know what his top ability level is, and I don't think he's going to win that race or get much closer.
Well, they were asking some questions on Friday night because that was
that's
a very unique meeting.
You know, we talked about Canterbury for years, but the danger question has been raised, and I think we saw it finally rear its ugly head on Friday night. That accident in the last was caused by two horses that had gone out far too hard, being ridden, jockeys quite within their rights to ride to the pattern, and then they stopped as if shot in the straight, and a horse has run into the back of them.
Well, that's the problem. Canterbury, the pattern at Canterbury has now become so savage. I don't know what's happened there. Like Greg Carmody has been looking after Canterbury for years, so I'm pretty sure he's doing the same thing he's done for a long time. But the night season, it started with the night season last year where it was diabolical, rails in run winner, race after race. And that seems to have almost transferred into this season as well. Now, obviously, Canterbury is mooted for sale eventually. So whether they want to spend a lot of money trying to fix what's going on at the moment, or will they just band-aid it for the time being? That's the problem. They're spending millions of dollars on races, but we're getting inferior surfaces, it would appear, served up at Canterbury, and a lot of horses are going there and have got no chance the way the races are being run, if they're back markers or off the speed.
I think it's a great shame because Canterbury is a real asset, and you know the club are trying to leverage that with promoting these night meetings and getting families out there and putting the food trucks on and all that, opening up racing to a bit of a different demographic, which is fine as long as you're not really interested in the spectacle itself, which has become just terrible. I'm getting to the point where I might not even bother betting on them, which is a massive step for me when it comes to racing in Sydney.
Well, I've noticed, obviously, there's been the Rosehill meeting on Friday of late, and then there's Randwick or Kenzo this Friday. Do you think that's almost they're looking with an eye to not having the Canterbury meetings on a Friday going forward?
Oh, I think that's just a summer thing, isn't it? Just trying to get as many Fridays in as possible, I think. But you might be right. I don't know.
Look, the Canterbury is up for sale. They've got a parcel of land there on the other side of the road, the car park as well, which should, you can build a block of flats there as well as the race course. This would be worth a lot of money. So I think eventually it'll be sold off, unfortunately, and we'll be left with the Kensington, and maybe they'll have to do up Warwick Farm and try and get 2 tracks out of that if they can widen it or something. They might be able to do something there. But as you say, it'll be a great disappointment if it does go. But they can't race on in this light at the moment, where it's just, diabolical bias nearly every meeting.
But can I ask you, Mark, are you the same? Are you frightened to bet on it?
Well, I'm backing off. If something settles down 4th now, you're thinking, well, it's still in the wrong spot, And
it's not even just a case of, you got a dynamite leaders track, find the leader, because you don't know what's going to lead, because the jockeys are all going to ride them out of their pattern.
Well, look at Lancaster Bomber. That
yes.
leader. And, he's sometimes out the back 2nd or 3rd last. I remember Tom Cherry rode him a couple of starts ago. He's nearly last on the turn.
And what did the betting tell us there?
Yeah, exactly.
They were happy to take any price hit, like.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there's no Canterbury on this Friday, but Mark Rhoden, you've got Newcastle Tuesday, Gosford Wednesday, Kensington Friday, Rosehill Newcastle Saturday, Hawkesbury Sunday. Are you doing all of them?
At this stage, Newcastle tomorrow was meant to be Sunday, but they transferred it because of the heat, which was a good decision. So you're running much more comfortable circumstances tomorrow. Then on to all the rest of those. Another busy week.
I see that the corporates reframed the markets for that was postponed at Newcastle. So there was a horse in the 2-year-old race that they bet $5 originally. They refunded all the bets on that and reframed the market and put it up $2.50.
Is that because it's not run on the same day?
I thought after a couple of days bets would stand, but obviously they've got a terms and conditions there where they can give you the shaft.
Yeah, sharp practice there.
One of the greatest G-ups of all time. Look, we'll be back on Thursday to preview this Saturday's meeting from Rosehill. As you said, it's just a relatively plain one, but no doubt there'll be 9 winners to go around, and we'll preview the quaddy legs as per usual. But guys, enjoy the next few days. Go well on the punt, and we'll catch up on Thursday.